Hi, welcome to St. Kilda Shul, and I'm here with Yaakov, Rabbi of St. Kilda Shul, and we are going to walk you through what happens during a Jewish ceremony. Now, traditionally, it's not always known what actually unfolds. I have so many couples going, Marcus, what happens next? What does this mean? So we're going to walk you through and tell you exactly what they actually mean, but also the perfect position, where to be in, so we can make sure that we get what we need to get in order to make sure that the finished product looks amazing and we don't miss any bits, because let's face it, you're only going to get one chance to do this, at least to that one person. You can go around again. Don't call us though, it gets a little messy. And we are privileged to have Yaakov here because I've done many, many weddings, and this man is like the Elvis Presley of the rabbi community. He's smooth, he's silky, and it's just so easy to work with him.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate that intro. Maybe we can cut it here.
All right, so we're going to move in now. So when the groom arrives and the witnessing of the Ketubah and what that actually means and what he's actually doing.
Thanks, Marcus. So prior to the actual Chuppah ceremony, there is a special ceremony, kind of a pre-ceremony, in a separate room to the synagogue, and that is called the Ketubah signing. Now, the Ketubah is an ancient document. It's about 2,000 years old, written in Aramaic. Its purpose is to ensure that the women who get married in the synagogue are afforded financial independence and rights financially in the marriage. And of course, even though nowadays in the 21st century we have laws of the state that govern these things and that ensure financial equality between couples, 2,000 years ago that was not the case.
It's incredible.
It was a different world. And of course, in those days, they lived in a culture across all civilized communities in which women were not afforded equal rights financially under the Chuppah or in their wedding ceremony or in the marriage thereafter. And often, if the marriage worked out, that was great, women were looked after, but if not, they were often left worse for wear. And the sages at the time were very uncomfortable with that, so they instituted what was then a legally binding document in the Jewish law to enshrine the financial rights of women within the wedding. So we still maintain that tradition today, even though the Ketubah document is obviously not legally binding in civil law, but nevertheless it has tremendous symbolism in tradition and in Jewish law because it does remind the groom and remind the community that neither of the couple are to be taken for granted or to be taken advantage of in any way.
So what happens, the groom is in the separate room, and then you'll read out certain aspects of the Ketubah, and then you'll either give him your Kippah and he'll hold it up.
That's
so
right.
that moment is the acceptance that the groom has actually heard and is accepting. So when you're in that room and then Rabbi hands you over something in the lift, it could be a pen, it could be anything. It's just to acknowledge that you've heard it. Make sure it's lifted nice and high, but make sure our cameras are on you when you do that, because it's a really significant moment and we want to capture it. And what we don't want is you've heard all this and then you kind of go, oh, okay, great. No, celebrate it. You know, we really want it up high.
That's right. Look, he doesn't sign anything in Hebrew. He just has to lift up a garment. And by doing so, he accepts upon himself the responsibilities that are enshrined inside that Ketubah document, which speak about his responsibilities towards her financially, emotionally, and in other areas.
Excellent. So at this point, while this is happening, the bride has arrived and she's moved into the Bedeken and she's seated with her immediate family, and the proceedings are about to unfold there. So let's take you into where it traditionally is being held and explain as to what unfolds there.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. So the Bedeken is, without a doubt, often the most emotional time of the Chuppah ceremony, and sometimes even more emotional and more spiritually charged than the actual ceremony. And the reason for that is that the bride and the groom have not seen each other traditionally for 7 days. And as they say in the classics, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Their feelings are building towards each other, and the absence of that intimate connection, even just seeing each other or talking directly to each other for 7 days, really builds up the anticipation and, of course, the momentum. After the groom has signed the Ketubah, he comes with his parents usually and some of the groomsmen with great fanfare and some singing and dancing into the bridal suite or the bridal room. And the bride is sitting there with her family, with her parents, with the bridesmaids and her close friends, awaiting eagerly for the groom to come in. And when he walks in, there's often a few Kleenex moments. And the groom will then face his bride, often giving her a bit of a peck, a little kiss, or a little hello, or what have you. And the rabbi at that point will explain the symbolism of the Bedeken. Of course, there's a historical element 4,000 years ago when the patriarch Isaac married Rebecca, one of the matriarchs. Rebecca veiled her face, and we maintain that tradition 4,000 years later. And there's a wonderful romantic symbolism as well. It's the groom's way of telling the bride that as stunning as she looks on the day, that is not why he is marrying her. It's not for her looks, it's not for what she is on the outside, but more importantly for who she is on the inside. So he symbolizes that by veiling, by covering the external beauty in order to reveal and manifest the internal beauty. And then after the veil has taken place, the parents of the groom and the bride will communicate their blessing, the special priestly blessing, to their son and daughter.
Is beautiful, and it is absolutely touching, and it's important that you get these moments. And these moments are the things, as we spoke to a little bit earlier, cement what a Jewish ceremony is. And as a footnote, as a non-Jew, I did 2 weeks of not speaking or seeing my wife prior to the wedding.
Wow.
No text messages. And what that does, and I recommend that to all our couples, what that does is it really, you know, as you lead up to the wedding, people get caught up in where are the place settings, who's showing up, and what am I going to wear, and none of that is important. It really isn't. And by having some space, by clearing out all the activity, then you really start to focus on what really is important.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more, Marcus. And you often see the expression, the emotion on the faces of the bride and groom and on their parents. There's many tears shed, and I often see the bridesmaids all standing in a line, holding tissues to their eyes. It's a beautiful experience.
It really is. So from that point, our groom leaves the Bedeken and then walks into the ceremony. And he normally comes in with his parents. So make sure you position yourself so you can see that as important as a bride coming in with her parents, we want to see that his parents are leading him to the Chuppah. So make sure that you're in a position, but you're not obstructing anybody else. So, being somewhere around here is actually really nice. That then our groom stands there, and then you start getting the entrance of everyone else coming in. And then as our bride enters, she circles the groom 7 times. Yaakov, tell me what that means.
So there's lots of symbolism and significance in the number 7. Most importantly, one needs to recognize that the groom walks into the Chuppah first, and the reason is that when the bride walks in, the sages were very adamant that she is making an informed decision and she is consenting to the relationship. And when the groom is there first, waiting passively, and the bride walks in actively and consciously towards the groom and encircles him 7 times, it's her way of saying, I want this as much as you do. This is as much my decision as it is yours. And that just brings out the equality and the reciprocity between the bride and the groom. 100%. The number 7 historically is interesting because when you go back to the biblical story of Joshua, who conquered the city of Jericho, he walked around it 7 times with the people, and it symbolizes the idea of creating a fortress. So what the bride is doing is effectively saying, I want to build our own home together. These are the walls which we are establishing, and the only people who are allowed inside these walls right now are you and me, my other half, together. And of course, there's another deeper symbolism, one which is more mystical and spiritual in nature, that the Jewish sages explain that we all possess within our hearts 7 different emotions, love and compassion and so on. And by circling 7 times, the bride is effectively saying to her husband-to-be, I want to invest in you and I want to connect with you and mold together with you with all 7 of my emotions and to fuse together as one to become the yin to each other's yang. And it's a beautiful way of expressing that through not just words, but the actions and the symbolism of the 7 circles.
And this is the really perfect time to get different angles of what's happening. So if, as a videographer, you have your camera static, making sure that it's not in a way, getting the whole action from start to finish. So you get to see the 7 full circles. But as your primary camera, making sure that you're positioning yourself so you can see us sort of come through the family. You get to see his expression on his face. I like getting some details. And often when they do cross each other, they'll give each other a little look as she walks past. And it's really, really a beautiful moment and a very, very powerful moment, and just allows you to be a little bit more creative and mixing it up so it just doesn't feel all static. Because as you know, the closer that we're going to get, the more we connect with the two under the chuppah. When we watch it back, the more that we can feel their emotions and their joy and their connection under here.
The ceremony consists of 2 parts. There is the blessing of wine coupled with the giving of the ring.
Yes.
And then the end part of the ceremony is the Sheva Brachot, yes, the 7 special blessings.
So what's a wine ceremony prior to the rings? What's that mean?
Whenever a Jewish couple celebrates a joyous occasion together, one of the various traditions and rituals of our faith, it's always done with a cup of wine. And the reason is to embellish the beautiful experience by being able to imbibe in a choice wine or something that tastes good. It just cements and celebrates this wonderful ritual, and that's why we use wine. Very important to use white wine as opposed to red wine, not for any mystical reasons, but quite practically, I can assure you that if the rabbi uses red wine and that spills on the bride's dress, his career is over. Gone. He will lose all of his weddings henceforth. So white wine is the way to go. And one thing I would say before discussing the actual ceremony and the drinking of the wine and the giving of the ring, a very important tip with regard to your officiating rabbi, and I recommend that all couples discuss this with their rabbi. The rabbi does play a central role in the chuppah ceremony, but he must bear in mind that the ceremony is not about him, it is entirely about the couple. And it's important that the rabbi positions himself in a space in which he is not blocking the view of the cameras or of the people and the audience, and tries to position himself in a way that the focus can be exclusively on the couple. So I recommend that the rabbi does not stand under the chuppah with the couple facing them or behind them, because then he's in every single shot, but rather stands, as I often do or always do, right here in the corner, so I can oscillate between the audience and the couple, but am not blocking the actual line of vision of the couple. And I know that couples that I've officiated their weddings are always very grateful and appreciative for that. We then make the blessing on the cup of wine. And the blessing is one in which we are rejoicing over this wonderful ritual of getting married. And after the blessing is made, groom and the bride will both take a small sip, just a small sip from the wine. This is a great time to get the parents of the couple involved. So we'll actually ask the mum or dad of one of them to actually take the wine and give it to their son or daughter to take a small sip, and we do that on 2 occasions under the chuppah, so both parents have the opportunity to participate in that wonderful experience for their kids.
Unlike your traditional spiritual ceremony where you have vows and so forth, the only thing I like lapel miking up the groom, only because I can hear his whispers and him moving into the Bedeken, and I get all that, but mainly most of the audio is done by the rabbi, leading the ceremony and sort of explaining the ceremony, doing a really good job at it. But then the groom will take the ring and he'll sort of hare at mikudeshetli, so he'll be putting on the ring. And the good thing is to really position yourself in order to see that, but don't cover up, don't put your back, because everybody else wants to see it too. It's a really, really beautiful moment, and a rabbi will see that and know that and make sure that he's in a position where he will allow you to be able to capture that, because it really, really is important. And those words that the groom says under the chuppah, what do they actually mean?
Well, firstly, I congratulate you, Marcus. That was the best Hebrew I've ever heard spoken by one of my Gentile friends, so very well done. If you ever want to convert to the faith, just kidding. What happens is that, as Marcus correctly points out, the bride and the groom say very little under the chuppah, and the reason for that is because the experience is often overwhelming, it's deeply emotional, it's deeply spiritual, and we don't want to limit the joy with words. Words can be expressive, but they can also be quite limiting at times. There will be plenty of opportunity during the reception and during the speeches to share words with each other, but that profoundly spiritual time under the chuppah is best expressed through just silence and presence of mind and simply being together. And I often encourage couples to hold hands under the chuppah just to sense each other with that sense of touch rather than having to express themselves through words. But the one line that is required in Jewish law to be recited by the groom as he gives the ring to his bride is the words Harei at mikudeshet li, which means, behold, you are betrothed to me, Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael, according to the laws of Moses and the Jewish people, and it's obviously with this ring. So he's making a demonstration that the ring is critical and it's central, and he's giving this as a gift to his wife or to his bride who's about to become his wife in a tangible sense. So again, it's not words, it's actions. And of course, the bride acquiesces to receiving that ring and retains it on the finger for some time after the chuppah. And it's placed on the index finger, not on the wedding finger. And it's retained on the index finger for some minutes after the chuppah, and then she can put it onto her wedding finger thereafter.
Okay. And you do mention that it needs to be of value.
Yes.
Of some. What does that mean?
What that means is when you make a commitment to someone else, as we've said, words are cheap. Action matters. Now, in order to demonstrate that the action is one which is meaningful, then the gift that is given, the ring that is given, has to be of a certain monetary value. You can't just go to one of those gumball machines, put in $1 and get out some sort of plastic shiny ring. That's not going to cut it. So there has to be a certain minimum value. Having said that, we never use an extraordinary type of ring. It's supposed to be plain in the sense that it doesn't have diamonds or any engravings. It's supposed to be a simple wedding band, but it should be of pure gold. The bride chooses the wedding ring that she wants for herself. The good news for all the brides listening is that the groom pays for it entirely out of his own bank account. So it should not be jointly owned. This is his gift to her, but ensuring it has a minimum value ensures that he is taking this obligation seriously and the ritual seriously, and that it has enough value to affect the actual cementing of the relationship under the chuppah.
Then we have the reading of the Ketubah. One is in ancient Aramaic, and there's an abridged version in English. Why is that read out under the chuppah?
That's a very good question, Marcus, and a lot of people aren't actually aware of the reason, including, dare I say it, in the religious community, I have to tell you. And fundamentally, the reading of the Ketubah, it does not form a critical part of the chuppah ceremony. But as I mentioned earlier, there are two components to the chuppah ceremony. The first is the wine and the giving of the ring, and the second are the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings recited under the chuppah. In the days of the Mishnah, we're going back 2,000 years, a lot of people aren't aware, but those two steps of the ceremony actually occurred 1 year apart. Wow. So the groom would betroth his bride with the ring, and then there would be 1 year wait while the groom went out and earned a bit of money for the family, and then he would come back, and of course they would do the 7 blessings, and that's when they would be formally married. But of course that year became awkward because they weren't officially married, but they were betrothed to each other, so they couldn't really be intimate with each other per se because they weren't formally married, but at the same time they couldn't be with anyone else because they were committed to each other, and it caused a few problems, human emotions and relationships being as they are. So the sages decided, look, let's bring the two steps together and do it all at one under the chuppah, but in order to ensure that in perpetuity the community would always remember that they do in fact exist as two separate steps of the chuppah and they're not intrinsically part of the same ceremony, we will create a buffer in between, some sort of distraction, so that we're always reminded that step 1 is complete and step 2 used to be done a year later. We're doing it now, but we know it's a separate and second independent step, and that's why the Ketubah is read. So when you look around and this long document is read in Aramaic, and some people are like checking their watches and others checking their Facebook feed or their Instagram or whatever it is, the idea of being a little bit distracted is actually what we're seeking to do.
Perfect. And this is the perfect time for you to move around and get some aerials, dirty over the shoulder, because then there will, and it's not long, but it's long enough for you to sort of move around and sort of get some really nice shots, get some reaction shots of the crowd and so forth. But then once the bridged version is read out, the rabbi will hand it to the groom, and then the groom will hand it to his wife. And what's the significance of that?
Well, this document, the Ketubah, is the obligations of the groom towards his wife, as it was back in the olden days. So by giving the document to her, he is effectively saying, I'm not simply committing to this verbally, I'm actually giving you the document to hold on to cherish, and to keep. And Jewish law actually requires the wife, or the couple in general, but specifically the wife, to hold on to that document and keep it as safe as she possibly can. And many women will actually keep this document together with their birth certificates or their passports or other important documents.
From there, we move into the Sheva Bracha, which are 7 blessings of the wine. This will be an opportunity for you to capture it being poured in the corner there. I really like getting some nice close-ups of that. And then it's either rabbi reads it out, or they do invite family members.
So this is a wonderful opportunity to get other family members or close friends involved under the chuppah. The only prerequisite is the ability to read the Hebrew blessing. But having said that, a lot of couples will actually afford those privileges and honors to people to read them in the transliteration. So we can do that now. They don't have to actually read in the Hebrew text. One can actually afford the couple the text beforehand, or afford the recipient of that honor the text beforehand, who can revise it and practice it in the transliteration so that they're confident to read it under the chuppah. And, we, I guess, dish out those various blessings to different members of the community or of the family, and each one gets to recite their blessing. The seventh and final blessing is the one which has with it a wonderful tune. And, as the rabbi will often say to those who are present, everyone who knows the tune, please join in, sing along. It's a happy, clappy type of tune. And I've often seen the bride and the groom holding hands underneath it, doing a bit of a boogie while it's going on, and it's a great experience for them. And the purpose of those blessings is, of course, to invoke divine blessing from on high and a sense of spiritual channeling into the couple's lives on this most important and auspicious time in their lives.
And then from there, there is a song that's kind of remembering, just I guess the landscape of the world at the moment. And what does that mean?
Well, the song, which is a very evocative and emotional type of song, a beautiful song, and really sets the scene for the culmination of the chuppah ceremony, is called Im Eshkachech. It is a direct quote from Scripture, which says that if I forget Jerusalem, then my right hand should forget its function. In other words, so important to our hearts is Jerusalem to the Jewish people that it's as important as the functioning parts of our body are to us. And we sing that song in order to serve as a constant reminder that even at the height of our joy, on our wedding day, when there is unbridled and unparalleled happiness and joy, we are always mindful of the fact that Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago in horrific circumstances by various nations. And we simply bear that in our hearts, that we're sharing our joy together with that veiled sorrow as well. I also like to remind people that there's another reason to break the glass, which is perhaps more romantic, because we don't just want to be thinking about the destruction of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And I often like to highlight that just as when a cup is broken, a glass cup is broken, it symbolizes an irreversible transition, so too the couple standing under the chuppah, just having become husband and wife, should share and experience their lives together in an irreversible sense as well. That should be an irreversible transition from singlehood to couplehood for the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And also the last time the groom gets to put his foot down. Let's not mention that. So position yourself. There'll be plenty of opportunity. This is something that you just don't miss because it's a thing, right? And I often like looking up to the groom, and I may have a moment. I'm like, don't miss, right? So it's building that nerves, and it's a beautiful moment. And then when the glass breaks, everyone shouts out Mazel Tov, and that's congratulations, pretty much. And then he sort of goes in for a kiss.
He goes in for the kill, that's right. It's a wonderful experience, and often it's done in the beautiful environs of a synagogue. Many couples also choose to have their weddings outdoors in an open environment of nature. And the reason is, of course, to symbolize that it's done under the open sky where the stars are out, at least at night time, and it symbolizes God's blessing to Abraham when he said, "May your children be as fruitful and multiple as the stars in the heaven." So I'm not suggesting every couple just go down the gauntlet, but I am suggesting that children are an important part of the Jewish family life. And of course, once the glass is broken and everyone's singing Mazel Tov, you will often have the family members or very close friends converging under the chuppah to have a hug or a kiss with the bride or the groom, with their loved ones, and sometimes they'll break into spontaneous dance, which is also quite nice. It is, of course, important for the couple to be mindful that particular dance under the chuppah can just go on forever. 100%. Yeah, because people are in the moment, and I've seen many running sheets in my time. There's not all that much time for dancing under the chuppah. That takes place later at the reception. Yeah. So in order to avoid that, the rabbi does need to sort of keep his eye on the watch. Yes. And try and get the couple from the chuppah into the yichud room.
Mm-hmm. And moving over to the yichud room, this is when the couple are alone for 7 minutes. Is that correct?
Well,
so
we have 5 minutes, but every rabbi's got his sort of time limit.
His timing. So no one can get access. So you go in, and normally there's something kosher in there for them to eat because they may or may not have been fasting. So there's something there for them to eat. But what's a symbol behind the couple being alone?
There's a couple of important points about the yichud room. According to the technical legal requirement for the yichud room, it's such that the sages required a time alone for the couple such that theoretically they would have enough time to consummate the marriage. Now, I'm not recommending that before the reception. What I am recommending and saying is that there needs to be, at least in theory, yes, enough time to consummate the marriage should the couple wish to do so. And various rabbis have different time limits. Some say 12 minutes, some say, as you said, 7 minutes. I have enormous confidence in my grooms, so 5 minutes is just fine from my perspective. And of course, during that time, I actually tell the couples this is the most important time for them, simply because they didn't see each other for 7 days. Under the chuppah ceremony, they are together, but they're together with 100 plus guests. After the yichud room, they're going to go and do photos and the wedding reception. So for the entire day, they don't actually have any time just for themselves. This is the moment. These are the few minutes that it is literally just the bride and the groom. And a lot of brides will take this opportunity to give a ring to the groom in the yichud room, in that sort of intimate space. Because, of course, the groom has already given the ring to the bride under the chuppah. There is no Jewish legal requirement for a bride to give a ring to the groom, but many of them want to, and should they want to, this is a perfect opportunity to do so.
And then we go in, we're signing all the documents, we sign the Ketubah, we do the legal documents in there, and that's pretty much it for a ceremony of this nature. Now, do bear in mind, this is still different, but kind of the same to your very orthodox Hasidic wedding. There's a fair bit more tradition. It's harder to move. It's a little bit stricter in terms of what you're getting. Personally, I've shot both. They are both beautiful, but in order to gauge the joy and the spirit, these that are a little bit more open, that aren't so conformed, are really beautiful to capture. Both are beautiful, but these are a little bit easier to work with, I feel.
Well, other than I think St Kilda Synagogue is the #1 hotspot and destination for all your wedding needs, but on a serious note, I think the whole idea of a couple in the lead up to their marriage and in the lead up to their wedding really getting to know the rabbi well, and also to get to know and understand the Chuppah ceremony and what each step symbolizes is so profoundly important, because it imbues the experience with tremendous meaning. And bearing in mind that there are so many details that the couple are focused on in the lead up to the wedding, the floral arrangements, the color scheme, the food, the venue, the wet weather option, and so on and so forth, that the last thing that we want is for the couple to actually go through their wedding day without actually being in the moment. And to me, knowledge is power, knowledge is key. The more a couple know about the wedding experience, the more they're able to actually enjoy it and immerse themselves in it in real time. So I do recommend for all couples to try and get to know the experience and understand the symbolism as much as possible. And in doing so, when you're looking back at the photos and at the videos, you'll actually be able to sort of replace yourself in that moment and relive it and re-experience it for the rest of your lives.
Well, we hope you found that helpful. There's a lot in there. We'll have some footnotes as well for some of the meanings and translations. I want to thank you. This is why this man is amazing, right? This is not rehearsed. This is him just going. He's very passionate. And off camera, we had a small conversation, and literally said, "I love weddings. This is one of the most passionate things that I absolutely love out of everything I do." So you can see that, right? You can literally see that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus. Much appreciated for the opportunity.
Thank you.